Hello friends, my name is Eric Cloward and welcome to the Stoic Coffee Break. The Stoic Coffee Break is a weekly podcast where I take an aspect of Stoicism and do my best to break it down to its most important points. I share my successes and my failures and hope that you can learn something from my experience and help improve your life. This week's episode is called There Are No Problems, Only Choices. The Stoics teach us that our perspective on life is one of the most important things that we can control. It's our perspective that informs how we approach everything. And today I want to talk about a powerful way to look at the world using Stoic principles that can help us become more resilient and better able to handle stresses in our lives. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Marcus Aurelius. What if there were no problems in your life? And I don't mean that you don't have things that are challenging or stressful, but what if, rather than fretting about something and framing it as a problem, you could just look at something as a choice to be made? I've been thinking a lot this week about an idea of how to approach challenges in life in a much more effective way. It's very different than how I currently see and do things, and this episode is an attempt to try and solidify these ideas into kind of an operational framework. But what if we did decide that nothing was ever a problem, that every situation that we come upon didn't carry a judgment of being good or bad? And is there a way to look at each situation as just an opportunity to make a choice? When I have things in my life that I'm struggling with, I generally view it as a problem. This creates a whole kind of frame around it and makes it kind of an object in my mind and makes it something that I can focus on. And though this can be helpful for being able to focus attention on something, when I cast it in the role of being a problem, it immediately has a negative connotation to it. I attach all kinds of worries to it, and I can ruminate on it to an unhealthy degree. And at times, this worrying about the future can be extremely stressful and often overwhelming. This kind of worry is not helpful, and it wastes tremendous amounts of energy and also colors my mood in the present. So today I'm going to show you how to use some of the key Stoic principles to help change your perspective, worry less, and make better decisions. There's an old saying that I try to remember when I get stuck making decisions. Good decisions come from wisdom. Wisdom comes from experience. Experience comes from making bad decisions. The more choices that we are willing to make, the better we get at making them. So how do we get ourselves to make more choices without feeling overwhelmed? What can we do to help us make better decisions and take actions that will help us move in the direction we want? Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Marcus Aurelius. The first principle I want to talk about in helping us get better about seeing the world as choices and not problems is amor fati. Now, amor fati means to love your fate, which means to love everything that happens to you. And this is often a hard concept to truly embrace. I think that most of us are happy to embrace the good things that happen to us and just try to tolerate everything else. But there are a few reasons why loving your fate is one of the best things you can do to let go of worry. The first reason to love everything that happens to you is because it is happening to you. The fact that you love it or not doesn't change that it has happened or is happening to you. And you loving or hating it is just your reaction based upon your judgment of it. So since it's happening to you anyway, why not love it? Second, if you can love everything that happens to you, then everything is an advantage. Nothing is a disadvantage or something you can't learn from. Since everything is an opportunity for you, you become more anti-fragile and resilient. A simple example. If you are short, love the fact that you are short. Don't lament that you aren't tall because it's a waste of time and cannot be changed. Then find all the advantages that life gives you for being short and use them. For you Game of Thrones fans out there, Tyrion Lannister is a great example of somebody playing to their strengths. Or, let's say a tornado comes along and destroys your home. You can stress out about everything that you've lost, get mad at the universe or God, and allow yourself to feel terrible. Or you get to see it as an opportunity to build a new house. Or you can see it as a signal that living in that particular city or town may not be a good option and move somewhere else. Or let's say that your partner breaks up with you and breaks your heart. You can hate them and you can feel like they've ruined your life. You can be bitter and hurt, or you can understand that there are reasons why the relationship didn't work out. You can appreciate all the good things that did happen in the relationship and think about what you've learned. You can go into your next relationship a bit wiser. You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. These things are not asking to be judged by you. Leave them alone. Marcus Aurelius. One way that we can reduce the number of problems in our lives is to have no opinion on something for as long as possible. Now, this may seem counterintuitive in some ways, but think about it this way. How many things in your life really need to have your opinion on them? For example, do you really need to care what someone on Twitter said? Do you need to have an opinion about what somebody was wearing on Instagram? Now, this doesn't mean you need to ignore things. It just means that you see events as happening and as information to take in. You can observe for as long as you need to and only make an opinion if it is something that truly needs your attention. Once you have an opinion on something, then you are invested in it, so be miserly with your opinions. Now, when you're able to see things as choices and not as problems, then you are much more present. When you aren't running away from or avoiding problems, then you are able to be more mindful. You aren't stuck worrying about things that may happen in the future because you're focused on making choices in the present. You're able to think more long-term as well, because you can ask yourself, what choice can I make right now that will have a better long-term outcome? You're not focused on the fact that you have a problem to deal with. You focus on the choice that you can make at this very moment. Now, one of the most important things that we can do is to be conscientious of not sitting in confusion. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we will see something as an insurmountable problem and we'll fret over it and we'll feel a lot of fear and distress. We'll often sit in this place of confusion and indecision because we're afraid of making a choice. And I know for me, a lot of stress comes from me when I don't make a choice. I'll sit and worry about which choice to make, and I can fret over something for days or for weeks, all the while feeling this tension of indecision. And when I finally make a decision, there's often this feeling of almost bliss because I've finally relieved that stress. Making choices can help clear away a lot of confusion. We should not be so taken up in the search for truth as to neglect the needful duties for active life, for it is only action that gives a true value and commendation to virtue. Cicero. Life is not a series of problems to solve, but something to experience. You experience it by making choices and taking actions. If you see the world as something to be experienced, then you also have a lot less fear around making a choice, because your goal is to have an experience and to learn from it. And so any choice that you make will help you reach that goal. When you see the world through the lens that life is about choices to make, then you are no longer being acted upon by the world either. You are no longer a victim. You're moving through the world making choices and taking actions. And when you see things as choices rather than problems, you're focusing on what you can control. You're always looking for what choice you can make in any situation, which, if it is something you can choose, then it's something that is under your control. Now, if you find yourself getting stuck trying to make a decision, one of the most important tools that you can use is to find the choices that most align with your priorities and your core principles. Taking the time to clarify your values can really help you see what is most important to you and how the different options you have align with your priorities. And if you get stuck in making a choice, another thing you can do is just make a small one. Just test it out, see how it feels. Sometimes we just need to get started moving in any direction so that we aren't stuck anymore. We can change our minds and move in a different direction if it doesn't work for us, but sometimes we just need to get started and then we can just keep swimming. The closer we can get to seeing the world as choices rather than problems, the closer we can get to being in more of a flow state in our lives. And what I mean by flow state is when you are playing a sport or an instrument or even a video game, you can hit a state where everything just feels like you can't fail. When a problem comes up, you make decisions easily. You can easily marshal whatever resources you need and just handle any situation like it's completely natural. Working on seeing the world through the lens of choices to make rather than problems to solve is not an easy shift to make. But I think that the more you can adopt this perspective, the more you can enjoy the experience of living and not get bogged down in the challenges of your life. Seeing life as choices to make, you are much more present and mindful, and you worry less about the future. And by improving your ability to make choices and take actions, the more you will be able to live the kind of life you want, because you will see that there are no problems, only choices. And that's the end of this week's Stoic Coffee Break. Be good to yourself, be good to others, and thanks for listening.